everyone can play that role. Obviously, we expect a lot more from people at the top because they're more visible, but it's not just from them that we need to expect leadership role. Now, if you look at leadership role, there are different levels in that. I mentioned the visionary aspect, and that's critical. A leader clearly has to be able to look a few years out, even 10, 15 more years out, in order to see what general direction you need to take, how you need to structure, to develop, to buy other organizations, to change your portfolio because your market is going to die a few years out. So it's about establishing a vision and a mission for this organization. And it's clearly the role of, in that case, the top leader. Not leaders, any leader of the organization, but the people at the top who are going to drive the organization. And in order to then deploy this mission, they need to instill the values. Values are very critical. They touched on early today. Values and culture, obviously very closely related, are things that are basically the backbone of the organization. A culture is not something you change overnight. You don't just decide from the top down, tomorrow's our values are going to be trust, teamwork, and whatever else. It's something that needs to be exemplified by the top, role modeling, but also has to be lived by the people in the organization. In order to go that, transform the organization where the culture is going to go where you want to take it, then you need, the leadership need to go into the organization and share those values, but show the way, even identify people in the organization that exemplify the values and recognize them, make them in that case also role model for others to follow. So this is a critical role, but that those values, mission, and visions are critical to show the way. Yeah, and in terms of deploying, how do you achieve that? Well, there are basically different leverage or different ways to turn that into practice. Obviously, a regular business plan and we turn strategy into action plan. Communication is also one thing that's clearly expected from management. You need to communicate where the organization is going. What are the challenges? What are the risks and opportunities? Also explaining clearly what are the role of the diverse entities of the organization, engineering, manufacturing, customer service, so they know what they need to provide, so that also if you trickle down to the organization, every single person can identify where they fit and how they can contribute to the end result. And this is critical. This is part of this communication here that can be repeated over and over. In the end, if I'm someone in front of the customer service desk, for instance, I know that my contribution is to listen to the customer, to service their needs. So I know this is going to trickle up to the top of the organization. In the end, we can achieve our strategy and achieve the results that we set for ourselves. And this is one of key, obviously, expectations from communication. Leading and engaging in change. It's not just telling people what to do. It's leading the way. If you talk about improvement projects in an organization, it's about not only sponsoring and saying, do this, come back to me in 6 months. It's also about actually leading improvement teams. Improvement teams in organization will identify what to do. You should have people, the leaders of those teams should be the people from the top management, the executive team, so that you can really, again, play a role model, be engaged in that change, and embark others with you. And this is a critical demultiplication factor that you need to play with. Other elements also that are critical in putting this leadership into action are developing people. Talk about engaging people. We need to show them where they can fit later on the organization. But in order for them to realize this possible development, they need to be mentored. They need to be trained. They need to be developed, so that in the end they can understand what the organization is about, but also support it and see a future for themselves. And this is about nurturing and developing. Leadership has also to play this mentoring role and prepare for tomorrow's leaders, but also than the rest of communicating and leading by example. Now, more practically also putting terms in that, how do you get the performance from leadership? I mentioned the terms of mission, vision, and culture. I repeat them here because they are, again, critical. This has to be shared. It's a common ground here. This has to be shared by everyone. You cannot, if you decide to go in different paths, go in different markets, go develop new products or acquire another organization or whatever development is going to be, you need to go back, be able to go back to the long-term objective. Role modeling, communication, inspiring change and motivation, I mentioned that also. These are critical elements to bring performance. And after that, if you do this properly, then, if you, for instance, the culture is properly deployed throughout the organization, not just placarded on the wall, not just as posters on the wall, but really lived, exemplified by the leaders, also by people, then you have those shared values. You can also cascade KPIs, and by that I mean people can know at every level of the organization what their role is going to be, cascading from the top KPIs that are directly derived from the strategy, that's then cascaded in different departments, all the way down to the machine operator or the service or the customer the customer service desk. That alignment is critical, but also the cascade objective. This is done properly, and you can have consistent deployment of strategy, but that also the assessment bit also that I have here, the assessment bit I have here is also important, because it's not just about saying, okay, this is going to be the strategy for the next 3 years, just go do it. So deploying and saying, okay, this is going to mean growth strategy, for instance, is going to mean developing new products, but also developing partnership to distribute in more markets, or training people to be more effective. But in the end, also, you need to assess, and leadership has to lead that effort as well. Assess how well you're doing in deploying this strategy. And obviously, there are other conditions, but these are minimal conditions for leadership to bring sustainable performance in the organization. If I take one practical example, also, we work with a number of large organizations. One of them is Bosch. We've supported them in all 4 continents by doing global assessment, for instance. And one of their objectives in doing that was to assess whether the same values were shared across the world in all entities, whether the strategy that's decided at the top is really understood throughout entities from Brazil to Japan, from South Africa to China. And in order for them to do that, again, we did an assessment for them, but as far as the people's role is concerned, and most of you probably have that, obviously, but you need, there are clear objectives that are set in the annual goals. It's not just clear objective also in terms of how much, what productivity gain you're going to reach or how many customers you're going to service, but it's also about behavior, and this is critical. How well are you living the values? And that feedback is something that a manager owes to his or her colleagues. Feedback on not just sheer performance in numbers, but also in behavior. So then you can develop the people through training or other means. As far as leadership goes, it's quite a bit different. I mean, leaders also need to have a feedback in their role as leaders. We have 180, which is basically, I manage a team. I'm asking my colleagues on my team to tell me how well I manage them, if I give them feedback, if I give them clear objectives, if we make clear decisions, if we are stable in the management. And this is something that organizations like Bosch, for instance, are clearly using in order to improve leadership competence. You can't just tell people and say you need to improve. As leaders also, we need to improve. And whether that be a 180 or 360, which is looking at my colleagues, my boss, getting feedback from my colleagues, my boss, and my people working for me, that in all cases will initiate a dialogue where everyone can understand how they can improve. In the end, It allows also to be better manager, to engage the change, understanding how we're perceived, how also as a manager, how we work, how we can improve to bring about the changes necessary in the business. And I'll finish with this, just a few things on behavior. Decisions is something that's expected from a leader at any level. They need to be clear. Doesn't mean, so I say clear decision versus soft consensus. Soft consensus is what do you want, okay, let's do that. No, it's about understanding, not just directing as a despot, but it's about understanding what is, getting the ideas from colleagues, understanding what is the best path that people would adhere to, and then making that very clear and sticking to it, and supporting the team when we're going to deploy that. Action is obviously also expected. You need to continuously or keep moving. Procrastination is not an option. You can't just postpone decisions that are critical for the business. Anticipation also, looking at, and that's when we look at vision, looking at what the market is going to look like, what technology can bring me tomorrow. Anticipation, being able to be a couple steps behind the rest of the team, hopefully also ahead the rest of the team, ahead of the competition, hopefully as well. Anticipate rather than just react to what others do in order to be ahead. Agility is something also that these days has become more increasingly critical. And I'll possibly, I'm not sure, but I don't know the Georgian economy as well, but certainly in Europe, where we've been, for the last 6-8 years, the economy has been up and down. They need to react very quickly. Agility has become extremely critical. Leaders have to be able to understand, detect the signals, be able to anticipate, and put in place initiatives that will get them ahead of others by being very agile. And it's not just leaders, but also the processes need to be reactive. You need to be able to reject, or need to be able to, you can't accept status quo, that's what I meant. You need to be able to react very quickly and in anticipation, and not just after that dictating, but convincing people so you can embark people with you. So there's just a few things, and I'll just finish with one sentence that I like. It's in leaders are like tea bags. It's in the hot water, and you can know how good they are. Because when you're in a difficult situation, then is where you can taste that leaders is a good one or not. Look forward to some questions and answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mark. And now?
You want the...
رح نسمع محاضرة الدكتور مؤيد. نشكر مستر مارك على محاضرته القيمة وعلى الانفورماتيف نولج اللي أعطانا إياها بهاي المحاضرة. تفضل دكتور.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اسمع الصوت؟ شغال شغال الصوت؟ يعني شوي اليوم أنا بحب أخرج شوي عن التقليدي، بحابب إنه تكون شوي فيها شوية تحدي للإخوان ونوع من يعني بديش تسمعوا محاضرة علمية ولا بديش تسمعوا محاضرة أكاديمية، حابب تكون أكثر عملية. وطبعا بعض الباحثين ممكن بيفضلوا إنه يشوفوا إيش آخر الأخبار عن الليدرشيب والأمور. يمكن حطينا سلايد واحد عن النواحي العلمية. من خلال خبرتي في عدد من المواقع حبيت أجمل يعني خبرتي الشخصية من خلال خبرة كمان العلماء في هذا المجال، واختار بعض الأمور اللي بعتقد تعكس الخبرة العملية الشخصية اللي أنا مريت فيها. الليدرشيب يعني الكل بحب يكون قائد، والكل بحب إنه يسمى بقائد، وزي يمكن ما حكى الأخ اللي قبلي، القائد لا يعني الشخص الأول. ممكن يكون أنت قائد وأنت بتكون في أدنى السلم الوظيفي، ممكن تكون قائد وأنت في أعلى السلم الوظيفي، ولكن قد يكون التركيز هو أكثر على القائد في أعلى السلم الوظيفي. لما نتحدث على أعلى الهرم المؤسسي، وطبعا إحنا بنتحدث عن قطاع خاص، يمكن بتحدث عن أعلى الهرم الوظيفي اللي هو رؤساء مجالس الإدارة عادة. في ناس كمان